Have you ever looked at a map of India and wondered why it's one of the most densely populated places on Earth? With over 1.4 billion people, India is a powerhouse of humanity. But the secret to its massive population isn't just about culture or modern growth. It's written in the very geography of the land, a story that began millions of years ago. Let's rewind the clock. About 50 million years ago, the Indian subcontinent, which was then an island, embarked on a slow-motion collision course with the Eurasian continent. This monumental crash wasn't just a single event. It was a geological process that gave birth to the magnificent Himalayas, the world's tallest mountain range. But what goes up must come down. The immense weight of these new mountains caused the Earth's crust just south of them to buckle and sink, forming a vast, deep depression. This depression is the hero of our story. Over millions of years, the brand new rivers flowing from the Himalayas, like the Indus, the Ganges, and the Brahmaputra, carried massive amounts of sediments, silt, and clayand, deposited it into this basin. This process gradually filled the depression, creating an enormous, incredibly flat, and unbelievably fertile area. The Indo-Gangetic Plain. Think of it as nature's perfect farm. This plain stretches over 2.5 million square kilometers across northern and eastern India, Pakistan, Nepal, and Bangladesh. The soil here, known as alluvium, is constantly replenished by the rivers, making it one of the most fertile agricultural regions in the world. For thousands of years, this land has been capable of supporting immense populations. It's no coincidence that this is where some of the world's earliest civilizations, like the Indus Valley Civilization, flourished over 4,000 years ago. The Indo-Gangetic Plain is a demographic magnet. For ancient societies, life was a simple equation. Food equals people. Where you can grow a lot of food, you can support a lot of people. The plain offered everything needed for a thriving agricultural society. Fertile land, a reliable water supply from the Himalayan rivers, and a climate perfect for growing multiple crops a year, like rice and wheat. This created a surplus of food, which allowed for larger families, the growth of villages into towns, and towns into bustling cities. This cycle has been repeating and compounding for millennia. Let's put this into a global perspective. Compare the Indo-Gangetic Plain to other major population centers. China's population is concentrated around its own great river plains, the Yellow and Yangtze. Europe's population centers are also found on its fertile plains, like the North European plain. But the sheer scale, flatness, and continuous fertility of the Indo-Gangetic Plain are arguably unparalleled. Unlike the arid deserts of North Africa and the Middle East, or the dense, less farmable jungles of the Amazon and Congo, or the cold, rugged terrains of Siberia, this region was perfectly engineered by nature for human settlement. For centuries, India's population grew steadily, tethered to the rhythm of its agriculture. Before the Industrial Revolution, most societies around the world faced what is called the Malthusian trap, where population growth would eventually outstrip food production, leading to famine, disease, and population decline. India was no exception. Its population would grow, then stagnate or fall, in a cyclical pattern. However, the sheer productivity of its land meant that the baseline population was always exceptionally high. Then came a strange and unexpected twist in the 18th and 19th centuries, the period of British rule. Conventional wisdom might suggest that colonial exploitation would lead to a population decline, and in many ways, it was a period of immense hardship, marked by devastating famines, like the Bengal famine of 1770. However, paradoxically, the overall population of India began to grow at an unprecedented rate during this time. So, what happened? The British introduced several key changes. They built extensive railway networks, which, while primarily for resource extraction and military control, also allowed food to be transported from surplus regions to famine-stricken areas, mitigating the worst effects of localized crop failures. They also initiated large-scale irrigation projects, like canals, which expanded the amount of arable land. And perhaps most significantly, the consolidation of a vast territory under a single administration, albeit a colonial one, reduced the frequency of large-scale internal wars that had previously acted as a check on population growth. This combination of factors, despite the economic drain of colonialism, inadvertently broke the old Malthusian cycle and set the stage for a population explosion. After India gained independence in 1947, this growth went into overdrive. The 20th century brought the Green Revolution, a massive leap in agricultural technology. High-yield crop varieties, fertilizers, and modern irrigation techniques transformed Indian agriculture. allowing the country to feed its rapidly growing population. At the same time, advances in public health, medicine, and sanitation led to a dramatic drop in mortality rates and a surge in life expectancy. More people were being born, and they were living longer than ever before. India's population, which was around 360 million at independence, has quadrupled since then. Today, however, the story is changing once again. India's population growth is slowing down significantly. The fertility rate, the average number of children a woman has fallen to just about 2, which is below the replacement level needed to maintain a stable population. This is a remarkable demographic transition, driven by factors like increased female education, greater access to family planning, and rapid urbanization. As more people move to cities for work and education, the economic and social incentives for having large families diminish. India is now on a path towards population stabilization, and it's projected to peak in the coming decades before starting a slow decline. But a new threat looms on the horizon, one that targets the very foundation of India's demographic story: climate change. The Himalayas, the source of the life-giving rivers that created the Indo-Gangetic Plain, are often called the third pole because they hold the largest reserve of fresh water outside the polar regions. But these glaciers are melting at an alarming rate. In the short term, this might mean more water in the rivers, potentially leading to catastrophic floods. But in the long term, as the glaciers shrink, the water flow in the Indus, Ganges, and Brahmaputra could become dangerously unreliable, especially during the dry season. This poses an existential threat to the water supply and agricultural productivity that supports hundreds of millions of people. Rising sea levels also threaten to inundate fertile, low-lying coastal areas and deltas, particularly in Bengal. The geographical secret that allowed India's population to flourish for millennia is now facing an unprecedented challenge. The delicate balance of mountains, rivers, and plains that created this demographic giant is being disrupted. The future of India's population will depend not just on social and economic trends, but on how the nation and the world confronts the challenge of a changing climate. The story of India's population is far from over. It's entering a new, uncertain chapter. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey through geography and history interesting, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration. See you next time.